go through the presentations, I'm going to be making books and videos and DVDs available, but they will be tomorrow evening. So if you want further information on what's been presented tonight, I will make DVDs and material available tomorrow evening. Also, these presentations are being recorded, and if you'd like a copy, please let us know, and we'll give you details once they're all finalized. But tonight, we're going to be looking at the Lost Ark of Noah. And just to give you some background about myself, the people that have been involved in a number of these discoveries were personal friends of mine. So I speak from first-hand experience. This isn't some kind of theoretical thing that I'm presenting to you. I know this material firsthand, and I know the people involved. If we've got time, we'll have some questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. But tonight we're going to look at the Lost Ark of Noah. Now, I'm assuming everyone's heard of Noah. Yes? Has everyone heard of Noah? There might be some people who've not heard of Noah. Okay, everyone's familiar with Noah. Okay. So, question is, could this be Noah's Ark? And tonight we're going to go on a journey. We're going to look at the history. We're going to look at all the facts, the numbers, all the expeditions that have been taken to look for Noah's Ark. Now, I believe that God created this world. I don't believe we came from monkeys. The Bible tells us that God created this world and he made it perfect. But unfortunately, after he created someone called Adam and Eve, they sinned and they were thrown out of this Garden of Eden. And as a result of this sin that came into this world, the offspring, the posterity, they started worshipping other strange gods. Gods that was not what they were created for. And as a result, God said that I cannot strive any longer with mankind. So what he did was he spoke to someone called Noah. And God said to Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. But with thee I will establish my covenant. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, the 17th day of the month, the same day, were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. So he's saying to Noah, he says, I'm gonna put a probation on this planet, and I'm gonna save you and your family, and anyone else who chooses to be saved. And behold, I do bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh, wherein is the breath of life from under heaven, and every living thing that is in the earth shall die. And God said unto Noah, make thee an ark. But what God said to Noah is, it's not just you that can be saved, but anyone else that chooses to go on the ark. It was a voluntary decision. The God that created this planet does not force people. He gives everyone a voluntary choice. So, he said to Noah, build an ark, and he gave Noah the plans. He didn't come up with it himself. God gave him the plans to make this boat. And so he started to build this boat, and we're told it took 120 years. Or, in other words, God gave 120 years for mankind to make the decision what they're going to do. And as he built this boat, what did people do? They laughed at him. But Noah was telling them that there's going to be a calamity that's about to hit the planet. And they thought it was a joke. They laughed at him. How can anyone build a boat? It never rained. The Bible tells us it's never rained. So why are they building a boat in the middle of nowhere on land? It just didn't make sense to them, and they laughed at him. But he warned them every day, day in, day out, he warned them. But they wouldn't listen. He even got dramatic about his warning. And they thought he was crazy. They laughed. Has anyone ever laughed at you? They thought he was crazy. You know, I was talking to some young people the other night, and they're saying, are you serious? Noah's Ark's been found? And they were asking me, so what? So what if Noah's Ark's been found? And I was talking to them about Bible prophecy and some of the things, and they thought I was like this. They thought I was from another planet. And God said, make this ark out of gopher wood. And so Noah built this ark. And then there came a time when God said that you will put animals in this ark. And they went in 2 by 2. Now everyone seems to think that it was 2 animals each. But the Bible actually tells us that there were 2 types of animals that went on the ark. There was something called clean animals and unclean animals. And these clean animals went by 7s, and the unclean animals went by 2. So an example of a clean animal will be like a lamb, a sheep, a goat, a cow. And an example of a unclean animal is something like a pig. Okay? And the Bible gives a description of what's clean and unclean. So even before the flood, there was a distinction between clean and unclean animals. And people thought, what's this strange event? And yet they still did not listen to what Noah was saying. And he warned them every day. He warned them there's a flood that's about to come. And they did not listen. And of every clean beast thou shalt take to thee by 7s, the male and his female, and the beasts that are not clean by 2, the male and his female. And all the animals came. His family went in. Noah was the last person, and he gives his final invitation. He says, come before it's too late. But they wouldn't listen. And finally, the Bible tells us that an angel came down and closed the door of the ark. And then it started to rain. And then the people started panicking. They'd never seen rain. And what they do, they start running with their materials, with their money. See, this man here has got his money there. And they run to the ark. But it's too late. And the Bible tells us, and we're going to be sharing these things over the next few nights, but the Bible is very clear that there's going to come a time in our history, in our present time, there'll be a time when the doors of probation will be closed. There will be a time when things will go so bad that God will say, enough's enough, it's over. And so it rained, and the people perished. And the waters prevailed exceedingly upon the earth. And the people died. But it's important that they had a choice. They chose not to go. There was plenty of room in the ark. There was plenty of room, but they chose not to go inside. And this wasn't some kind of local flood. Some people think there was a local flood. This was a worldwide catastrophe. And here they fed the animals. And then there came a time when Noah sent out a dove to see if the waters had come down. And the waters returned from off the earth continually, and after the end of the 150 days, the waters were abated. And the ark rested in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, upon the mountains of Ararat. We find it in the book of Genesis, chapter 8. Now the Bible says, and the ark rested in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, upon the mountains of Ararat. Can you see that's plural? Mountains of Ararat. And this is what Mount Ararat looks like today. Now some people think this is a fable. Can the Bible be trusted? Is it really true? Is this just like a fantasy story? And there are many, many Christians today and non-Christians who do not believe that the book of Genesis actually happened. And after it rested, the animals came out, the door was opened, and there was a rainbow. This rainbow was a promise that God will not destroy the earth again with a flood. When's the last time you saw a rainbow? I saw a rainbow the other day. Isn't it beautiful, a rainbow? And they gave God thanks. And there they built an altar. And there they worshipped the true God. So, question then. Could such a story be true? Now, some of you may be, I don't know, into evolution, or some people may think we came from monkeys, but it's interesting that some of the archaeology that's been taking place, they found a whole bunch of skeletons all mixed up. Here, I mean, it's like a little cartoon, but it says, but Smithers, why are there land animals and marine animals all mixed up together? Now, it's not the scope of these few days to go into the evolution and creation debate. That's going to be another program we can look into. But it's interesting that when they do archaeology, when they dig up, there's things that come up which throws out the evolution theory. Has anyone heard of Josephus? Flavius Josephus was a historian during the time of the Romans. Okay, during the time of the Emperor Tiberius, he was a historian. Flavius Josephus, first century Jewish historian, also wrote about the remains of the Ark as follows. A district called Charon has excellent soil for the production of amomum in the greatest abundance. It also poses the remains of the ark, in which report has it that Noah was saved from the flood remains, which to this day are shown to those who are curious to see them. So at the time of Josephus, he's saying you could see Noah's Ark. That's what Josephus is saying. Now we go to Turkey. Has anyone ever been to Turkey? This is Turkey. This is a picture of Mount Ararat. And many people for a long time believed that if Noah's Ark is to be found, it will be found on Mount Ararat. But what did the Bible actually tell us? Where did the Ark land? On the mountains. And here you can see snow caps. Majority of Ararat is covered in what's called glaciers. And so when people go look for Noah's Ark, they find it very difficult. It's a very dangerous place to go. And this is what Mount Ararat looks like. And in this part of the world, it's a very dangerous place. You can get kidnapped. You can get shot at this place. That's what Mount Ararat looks like. Imagine climbing that to look for Noah's Ark. Okay, Bible tells us, as well, and history tells us that the ark landed in a place called Urartu, which is where we get Ararat from. Okay, this is Turkey. This is Dubaizet, and here we find the area where a lot of people have been looking. Now, legends place the ark on the main mountain. Okay. But Mount Ararat is a post-flood volcano. Did you know that? So this mountain which people think Noah's Ark should be on is actually a post-flood volcano. That means that sometime after the flood there was a volcano which made this mountain as it is. So if there was a boat on this mountain, do you think it's going to last, a volcano? It's not, is it? Now this satellite photo shows how Mount Ararat intruded through an older mountain range. So this Mount Ararat is a modern mountain. So the ark cannot be on this mountain, and if it is on this mountain, it will be well destroyed. Has anyone ever seen a volcano on video or DVD or on TV? It's devastating, isn't it? In fact, when Mount Ararat blew, it blew a literal hole in the mountain. And see this hole here? That's where people think Noah's Ark is. A volcano destroys everything. This is what happens, with St. Helens. This is Ararat as well. Okay, now, do we have any legends about Noah's Ark? There's an epic here called the Epic of Gilgamesh. And here we find cuneiform tablets which describes a story of a flood. And there's also a book called the Epic of Gilgamesh, and in this book it describes that there was a flood and how they built a boat and these people were saved. There's a book called the Ark File by René Norbergen, and he documents all these facts and all these legends about the story of Noah's Ark. And this is the Chinese letter, okay, for ship. The Chinese letter for ship, right, consists of symbols for mouth and 8. And to some, this suggests that the ark was a boat which contained 8 persons. So you see the mouth, and you see 8. And what do I mean by mouth? A mouth like that, with 8 people in it. The mouth representing a boat. So even Chinese, okay, the Chinese language tells us that there were 8 people on a boat to describe boat. According to the book, there's over 600 legends over this earth that describes the story of a worldwide flood and the story of Noah. But each country, each legend has a different name and a different description. And here we see, I know you can't read it, but if you get the DVD, you can go through it. But here you got a summary of some of the literature accounts, starting from 1850, going all the way through it, of how there are records and descriptions and legends about the ark. Around 800 BC, there were stories of King Ashurnazarpal II. They used to do little tourist trips. 800 BC, they used to do tourist trips to Noah's Ark, and they used to go down and take bits of Noah's Ark and make little amulets. This is all documented. And here there's someone called Berosus, who's another historian, and he even had a picture that was given to him what Noah's Ark looked like. So Ararat Plain floods tradition. So we see ark petrified wood piece. People describe that they found wood pieces there. There's a monastery claiming they have bits of Noah's Ark. People claim they found Noah's wife's tomb. So there's a number of stories. Here you've got a town meaning the 8 in Iran. You've got this town here, which means the raven won't land. You've got here Noah's foot. So you've got all different descriptions here, which talk about this plane, this flood, this landing of the boat. Literary accounts of Ark landing. Historians are not eyewitnesses to what they wrote about Noah's Ark landing site. Historians copy other historians and accounts, second-hand, third-hand, and many generations later accounts, and historians tried to correlate other writings as well. So historians had many ark landing sites. They're not consistent locations over the millennia. Some say it's Urartu, Ararat, Nisir, Quadu, Armenia, and various places. So what these historians do, they have this information, but what they're saying is, can we really rely on the historians? That's something that each and one of us have to make a decision. Can we rely on their accounts? Now, according to Rennie Norberg, a number of expeditions have explored Ararat. A Russian expedition in 1915 and 16 claims to have evidence of the Ark. Sadly, all the evidence was lost during the 1917 revolution. So it seems every time there's a story that they found Noah's Ark, all of a sudden all the information is missing. Okay, or they couldn't get the videotapes, or they couldn't get this information. It's just mysterious. All these sightings cannot be proved. And here's a picture of, these are supposed to be Russian troops, and this is what they're supposed to have seen on Mount Ararat, a post-flood volcano mountain. And then by the time they got back to the Tsar, there was a revolution, he got killed, and all the information got lost. But they're claiming that this boat is fully intact. And what does this look like? It looks like a barge, doesn't it? And here we see the mountains of Ararat here. Now, he also read a book called Noah's Ark Found, and numerous sightings and claims have been made over the years. So we're going to explore some of these sightings. Now, the main areas for Noah's Ark where people have claimed they found Noah's Ark is Urartu, which is the mountains of Ararat, Mount Ararat itself, alleged sightings. There's a place called Durupina, which is the most researched place. Some people think it's in Iran, alleged sighting and petrified wood, and some place it in Mount Kudi, but there is more than one Mount Kudi or Mount Judi. In the Quran states very clearly that Noah's Ark landed on the hill of Mount Judi. The problem is which Mount Judi? There's more than one Mount Judi. Also, when you translate Mount Judi, I've been reliably told that Mount Judi can mean highest of mountains. It doesn't necessarily mean one mountain place, but it can mean a range of mountains or a range of places. Here we see a summary. I know you can't see it, but here we see a summary of eyewitness testimony lists. okay, that people have claimed to have seen Noah's Ark. Ancient historians recorded location sightings: Berosus, Hymenius, Nicholas of Damascus, Josephus, and the recent sightings since 1856. Dozens of alleged eyewitnesses, and they claim there were many more with them, and documented in a book called The Explorers of Ararat. Eyewitnesses did not know each other. Most all white eyewitnesses are now dead. Some eyewitnesses claim to have touched and walked on Noah's Ark. Many eyewitnesses are World War II and military veterans, and researchers have spoken with 25 to 50 alleged eyewitnesses. There are drawings, paintings and testimonies, but no photos. And why did the 90% of alleged eyewitnesses see a boat connected with the ice when the explorers over the last 50 years did not? So all these eyewitnesses are saying they see a boat with ice connected to it. Noah's Ark wood. This gentleman here claims he's got a piece of Noah's Ark wood. It's petrified wood. It's been dated. It said they found it in 318 AD, and it's a place called Mizidin. The Archbishop Mesrop photo says he's got it, and this supposedly is supposed to be a piece of wood from Noah's Ark. But can it be proved? No. And most people think it's here. Most of the descriptions they believe is in a place called Ahura Gorge, where the mountain blew out from the volcano. This man here is called George Hagopian, and he claims he saw the ark. And this is what he said he saw. Very, very similar to what the Russians claimed they saw. So what does he have to say? He was interviewed on tape. They even did a lie detector test on him, and he passed the lie detector test. So a number of people interviewed this man, and they were pretty much convinced. This gentleman here, I know him personally, Larry Cruz, and he interviewed him. There's another chap, Arthur Chuchian. He claims he saw the ark as well, and this is his drawing, but again cannot be proved. There was another man in 1943 called Ed Davis. He claims he saw Noah's Ark, and he claims he saw this. He saw that Noah's Ark was broken in two. So there's one part here and there's one part here, and some of it fell down here. That's how we describe Noah's Ark. But what proof do we have? None. There's another guy called Gerald Isaacs. He claimed he saw it while he was on his plane. And here's a painting of it. Yeah, you can come in. Another guy called Kevin Hurley. He claims he's seen the ark, and this is what he claims he saw. Al Chappell, he claims he saw this. He sees it on a ledge. Now, recently, in 1973, they found this on part of the glacier. They found this shape here, and they think that was Noah's Ark. They did pictures, and they found this shape here, an anomaly. They think that was Noah's Ark. And this guy, George Stevens, he's convinced that that place is Noah's Ark. But have they seen it? Have they touched it? Can they prove it? No. This guy claims that this is Noah's Ark here. Again, there's no proof. Then they started taking some satellite pictures to see, well, maybe we can find Noah's Ark using satellite pictures. And they found something here. The story goes like this. The American Air Force were taking pictures, and they discovered an anomaly. And it's not very clear, but they discovered an anomaly. And then the CIA, they hid the pictures. Then when the Freedom of Information Act came out, a number of people heard the story about they got these secret pictures, so they were forced to release these pictures, and they call it the Ararat anomaly, and it's here. And so some believe that that is Noah's Ark. And so they're convinced that somehow it started here and it slipped into this region here. But have they been there? No. Can they prove it? No. They've taken satellite pictures and they're convinced that is Noah's Ark, but cannot be proved. Looks like a boat, doesn't it? And so they've taken some more pictures. This is done by the US Air Force, which got them to this anomaly. And here he thinks they've got 3 prongs here and prongs here, and they think this is Noah's Ark. This is another picture. But none of it can be proven. Another man here, Fernando Navarro, he claims he found Noah's Ark and brought down some wood. And he said this is wood from Noah's Ark. However, he had a guide with him, and before he found this wood, he went up a number of times before he found this wood, and the guide told the Turkish government that he planted the wood. So he got caught. And the story goes that he bought this wood from an ancient monastery, so it was very old wood, and he claimed that was, and he even did this elaborate drawing of what Noah's Ark looked like. And this is the supposed part of the wood that's supposed to be from Noah's Ark. Now this man, Angelo Pelago, he claims it's the same site. He's following from Navarro, and he claims that is Noah's Ark. And he also claims that he's seen it and taken video footage of it. And he believes that that's part of Noah's Ark and it's broken and the rest of it's there. And you can actually find video footage of it on YouTube. I didn't bother getting it for you, but there's video footage on YouTube, and he takes a video of it claiming this is Noah's Ark or beam of Noah's Ark. But again, it could be a beam of anything. And this is actually a still picture from the video. And he believes it's here. And this is Angelo Pelago. This is what it looks like. Now they're carbon dated, right? Some of this supposedly Noah's Ark wood, okay? And it's only 1700 years old. But according to the Bible, if it's going to be wood from Noah's Ark, you're looking like over 4,000 years old. So it cannot be this wood. So Fernando Navarro wood, species of oak, carbon dated it to 1300, 1700 years old, not even close to Noah's flood. Sincere but was all over the mountain 3 years before he discovered the wood. He was accused of planting the wood and accused of purchasing wood from an ancient Spanish monastery or railroad ties. And again, wood proves nothing. Wood doesn't prove that it is from the boat. So direct observation has failed. So what some are suggesting, some of the more recent researchers are saying that we need to go in the mountain and take subsurface radar. That's the only way we're going to find Noah's Ark. And they're still convinced it is on Mount Ararat. So, questioning, is Noah's Ark in Turkey, for starters? Now, Nicholas of Damascus, the biographer of Herod the Great, about 30 BC, referred to an object considered to be the remnant beams of Noah's Ark in Armenia, the biblical equivalent of Ararat. Above the country of the Minas in Armenia, a great mountain called Baris, where, as the story goes, many refugees found safety at the time of the flood, and one man transported upon the ark grounded upon the summit, and relics of the timber were for long preserved. So this was the book called Quest for Noah's Ark. So according to him, Noah's Ark is in Armenia. Julius Africanus in the 3rd century wrote more specifically about the location of the ark as follows: and the ark settled on the mountains of Ararat, which we know to be in Parthia. We also noted that the Elbron's mountains match to what the real mountains of Ararat should look like according to a description by Sargon II in 714 BC. He recorded that the mountains of Urartu, Ararat, were like the spine of a fish, which were very high and impossible to cross. And George Rock's Ancient Iraq, London, Penguin Books. Now, we also find Mount Solomon in one of the several high mountains. So some people think that Mount Solomon, which is in Iran, is where it should be. But we have sufficient evidence to suggest that it has to be in Turkey. Mount Qudi. The Quran was written down from sayings of Muhammad in the 7th century AD and states that the Ark came to rest on Al-Judi, or Mount Qudi in Turkish. Judi in Arabic can also mean the heights, in which case it is not referring to a specific mountain name at all. Now the Quran's quite specific that it's on the side of a hill, okay? And I think it says it's on the west side of a hill, to be specific. So why Mount Qudi? One big reason why Qudi has become more popular recent is that geologist Dr. Friedrich Bender in Germany found bits of wood containing asphalt on the summit of Qudi. Now this Qudi is a different Qudi. This is way south of Mount Ararat, way south. There's a place called Mount Qudi, and some people think that's where Noah's Ark landed. So they found bits of wood containing asphalt on the summit of Qudi in 1953. These fragments were carbon dated around 1971 to 6,500 years before the present time. And recently Dr. Willis and Bill Kruse theories that the wood was part of Noah's Ark. So they built a little monastery there, and they think that's where Noah's Ark was. There was also debate as to the location of the real Mount Qudi. For at least the last couple of hundred years, Qudi has been the name of a high peak or ridge of Mount Ararat. There was another Qudi Dagi in south central Turkey near Sanli and Haran, where the biblical patriarch Abraham lived. And the people around Haran believe that their Qudi Dagi is the actual site where Noah's Ark landed. As well, there was another Al-Judi in Saudi Arabia, and still others have claimed that Durupina site is located on Mount Qudi. In fact, on this site here, the locals identified that mountain as Mount Judi or Qudi. So this is the cloister they found on one of these Mount Qudis, and they think this is where Noah's Ark was, and they built this using the wood from Noah's Ark. But again, there's no proof. As I said, some claim it's in Iran and Mount Solomon. They think they found petrified wood, and this is done by someone called the Base Institute. Someone called Bob Kunuk thinks he's found it in Iran. Now what's his evidence? What do you reckon he's got? He says the object consists of dark rock with an uncanny beam-like appearance in several places. The colour and texture of the rock appears to be unique in the area. The object fixed the approximate dimensions of Noah's Ark, which is debatable. And some samples tested by an independent lab showed signs of petrified wood. Doesn't still mean it's Noah's Ark. The object is 13,000 feet, but the nearest tree is about 8,000 feet. And Solomon means Solomon's throne. It is the only mountain we know in the Middle East outside of Israel with a Hebrew name. And wood at the summit, which may be from the shrine, has been dated to around 500 years old. So that makes it not possible. They found abundant sea life in the adjacent summit. So why did they find sea life way up in the mountain? Which again shows that there was a worldwide flood. And they found microscopic sea life in the rock samples from the object, which they think must be a boat then, if it's got sea life attached to it. And all major climates are close by along with all the ecosystems. So they're saying basically there was a flood, it shows there was a flood, and therefore Mount Ararat is not the place, it's Mount Solomon in Iran. But that doesn't fit in with all the historical records or the testimonial eyewitnesses that have seen it. So, but they're convinced that it's here. So they're saying this is wood from Noah's Ark, but you can also find this from Thailand, and it looks very much the same. Most of the geologists, archaeologists, and people that are into the Ark finds do not believe that this is Noah's Ark. So alleged eyewitness possibilities. I won't go through all the names, but one, eyewitnesses were lying and purposely made up or distorted their stories. Okay, or eyewitnesses saw rock formations and were deceived, or eyewitnesses told the truth and are correct that a boat is there on the mountain or mountains of Ararat. By the way, Noah's Ark has been found in Holland. Have you read about this one? They found Noah's Ark in Holland. Now, in 1959, Turkish Air Force pilots were taking photographs of Urartu, the mountains of Ararat, and they found this. And I thought, that looks very unusual. What does it look like to you? Looks like a boat, doesn't it? They sent these pictures to someone called Dr. Brandenberger of Ohio University. This Dr. Brandenberger, he was the one during the time of Kennedy when they saw the missiles in Cuba, and he identified these missiles. Okay, so this man was a world expert on photogrammetry, and when he saw this photo, his immediate reaction was, that is a ship. In 1959, this unusual symmetrical outline was photographed from the air at an altitude of 2,000 meters in the mountains of the south of Mount Ararat, and news of the find quickly spread around the world. So Dr. Arthur Brandenberg, a world famous expert in photogrammetry, who said, I have no doubt at all that this object is a ship. In my entire career, I have never seen an object like this on a stereo photo. Even the approximate length of the object fits the length of Noah's Ark. Then it appeared in Life magazine in 1960. Could this be Noah's Ark? So a team from America went. An expedition spent a day and a half at the site but didn't find anything promising, and most of the team concluded it was an anomaly of nature, but the scientists and the team felt that they needed more investigation. That was Dr. Brandenberger said that this place needs to be excavated. So what they did, they dug and dug, and they couldn't find anything, so they decided, let's get some dynamite and let's blow a hole in it and see what we get. Now they had an expectation. Now if you read the Bible and you think Noah's Ark landed on Ararat or Mount Ararat, you have an expectation that you'd find a boat, wouldn't you? So they had this expectation that they would find a nice little wooden boat, okay, buried in mud. So when they came to the site, they just found rock. So they put some dynamite, which is very good archaeology, isn't it? Let's put some dynamite there, blow a hole in the area, and they didn't see anything. They saw some rock that looked like timber, but they said it's rock, so it can't be Noah's Ark. And they said, waste of time, this isn't Noah's Ark. Then something happened. Oh, by the way, some people claim that if you take other pictures, right, you can make Noah's Ark out of anything. You see these little squiggly lines, right? And some people call these the lifeboats of Noah's Ark. But if you notice, these pictures have been taken at a slant. You can make pictures out of anything if you take a certain angle. Okay, the picture that we saw previously was from directly above. Something happened in 1978. There was an earthquake. So this was before the earthquake, and this was after the earthquake. And basically what happened was the soil in the land around the ark, it fell away and exposed more of the boat, or what they thought could be the boat. So this was before and this was after. Now there was a man called Ron White. I knew him personally, okay, and he was convinced that this was Noah's Ark. So he set out to do field work there. And he found these. He found what looked like rib timbers of the boat. So how long was Noah's Ark? The length of the ark should be 300 cubits. Okay. Now we know that Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians. Now there are two measurements for cubits. We have what's called an Egyptian cubit, and we have something called a Hebrew or a Jewish cubit size. Okay, and there's a difference. Now the Egyptian cubit is generally recognized as having been the most universal standard of linear measurement in the very ancient world, and was standardized by a royal master cubit of black granite against which all the cubit sticks in use in Egypt were measured at regular intervals. The royal cubit was 20.62 inches. 20.62 inches. So according to that, then 300 cubits will give us basically 515 feet, or to be precise, 515 feet and 7 inches. So just to give you a comparison, this is what they're saying the ark would have looked like compared to a double-decker bus, a house, and an elephant and people. So 300 Royal Egyptian cubits equals 515 feet. Compared to a football field, it was not a small boat. So what they did was they measured this shape, and guess what they found? Exactly 515 and a half feet. Is that a coincidence? So does the length match the Bible? So the Bible tells us, okay, that it should be 515 and a half feet, and the length of what they found at that site was exactly 515 and a half feet. Perfect match. 300 cubits. Now the Bible describes, okay, that the width of the Bible should have been 85 foot 9 inches, but they actually found that the width was wider. Now the reason why they believe it was wider is because they believe that as the mud flow came over the boat, it crashed the boat and it splayed open. Okay, so the width won't necessarily be the exact width as what contained in the Bible because it's been splayed over, but however the length of the boat has not been affected. Now the story goes that when he sent the dove out, the dove came back with an olive leaf. Now it's interesting, this is where, okay, they found, this is where they found the boat, sorry, but this is where they think it originally came, the boat. And they think that the boat was originally one place and it slid with the lava flow to its present location. But what they found was they looked at the different places around the boat. Here's a village, right, and it's called The Crow Won't Land. Okay, here's another one, Voluntary Pilgrimage. Here's another one, Hero's Bed, i.e. where the heroes came from. Here's another one, okay, High Place. Another one called Judgment Slope. This one here, To Make a Presentation of the Sacrifice. These are all names of villages. This one here, this place, where the oars were reversed. And then you've got a place here called the Village of 8 or the Place of 8. So they found that all these villages nearby, they had names that corresponded to the story of Noah's Ark. This is a picture of the Valley of 8. Why the Valley of 8? How many were in the boat? 8 people. Village called Where the Boat Slowed, high in the mountains. Now the Bible shows that metals were used before the flood. Tubal-Cain, an instructor of every artificer in brass and iron, and he lived before the flood. Now it's interesting, okay, that this has been quite well researched. But when they've gone into the pyramids, they've noticed that in the pyramids they did not find any soot. You know when you have a flame torch, it gives off soot. They did not find soot in the pyramids. And then some people found hieroglyphics of what they saw as giant light bulbs connected to something. And they've also found ancient batteries that gave power. So there is a theory that during this time that they were very advanced in technology. You take any culture, you take the Hindu culture, in the Hindu culture, in their traditions, they had airplanes. In the pyramids they found little models of aircrafts. So they did something unusual. They took metal detectors, 3 different metal detectors, and they went across the boat and they found regular patterns of metal. They then did the metal detector readings outside of the formation around the area, and guess what they found? Nothing. No metal. They only found metal readings on that particular formation. And they found that there was a regular pattern going along the boat and across the boat. Now Josephus, what's he got to say? Flavius Josephus, the AD 90, the famous Jewish historian, stated, its remains are shown there by the inhabitants to this day. He quotes Berosus the Chaldean, 290 BC, who indicated tourists would take home pieces of the ark for making good luck charms. It is said there is still some part of this ship in Armenia at the mountain of the Chaldeans, and that some people carry off pieces of the bitumen which they take away and use chiefly as amulets for the averting of mischiefs. These comments tend to indicate its location would not be in an inaccessible area. At some point the ark was covered by mud and lava flow, which caused future generations to lose its location. They did recordings and they found a fossilized rivet. They took this to a laboratory and they found that this rivet contained 3 types of metals. It had titanium, aluminium and manganese. These metals combined together make a modern day alloy. How do we find this on an ancient boat? Did Noah really understand how to use alloys? But that's what they found. Fossilized rivets. Even today there's been independent researchers who have gone to the boat and they found rivets. They've taken metal detectors and it's positive. They've taken samples, taken to laboratories, and they've found titanium, aluminium and manganese. These are some of the things they found from the site. And some of these materials have been tested to contain large amounts of iron. Aluminium, titanium, manganese and carbon. Now the Turkish government did some of their own excavations and they found 4 metal rods that they've tested themselves and confirmed to be metal. And here they believe this is how they use the rivets to hold down the woods and the joints for the boat. These are what they think are ribs of the ship. And again, metal readings along the side showed the same regular pattern of iron. They've done radar scans, and again the radar scan shows a consistent boat-shaped formation. They did their computer model, and this is what they think looks underneath the soil. And this is what they think possibly the boat would have looked like. Far different to the eyewitness accounts of a large barge. Now some scientists have said if you had a large barge 515 feet and you put that in the ocean, it would break in half. It would not be able to withstand the pressures of the sea. This is what they think the boat could have looked like here. Then they did some more radar scan and they found a piece of deck timber, which is that one here. And this is what it looked like, and they had it tested and they found it to be carbon. They also found that it was plywood. They found 3 layers of wood with some kind of glue. And what they found that this wood was petrified. Petrified means it's no longer pure wood, but it's like rock. But they found it to have high contents of carbon, and they had 3 separate layers within this sample. You can see here is the seam there and the seam there. So they believe that this was the deck timber. It tested for 71% carbon, which means it was wood at some stage. Now, can this happen in our day? This is a well in a little wheel in Australia, and under the right conditions wood will become petrified in a short period of time. Here they found this is part of an antler. And they found remains of toilet. They call it coprolites. So these are some of the samples that they found from their research. Now they found large specimen of slag used as ballast. Now slag, okay, is a byproduct from when you make alloys. And they found that there was quite a large number of this ballast, and we're told that ships need ballast to keep it stable in waters. And here in Turkey you find this place called Noahs Ark, which means Noah's Ark. And here they believe is the remains of Noah's Ark. In 1989 the Turkish government opened a visitor centre at the site, and they officially recognised this as a national park and that this is Noah's Ark. In more recent times though, they kind of shine away a little bit. For what reason I'm not sure, but you know, many people like to spend money. They like to come to Turkey, let's do an expedition, spend lots of money, so they're quite happy to have lots of money coming into Turkey, I guess. But officially they've recognised this as a national park, and this is Noah's Ark. Nearby the ship, or what they think is a ship, they found giant anchor stones. And they found a number of these in a straight line, indicating they think that as Noah came into the mountains of Ararat, that he dropped these anchor stones. These anchor stones were to stabilize the boat in the rough waters, and they found a straight line of these anchor stones. And they found on these anchor stones 8 crosses on them, which they believe that people in the past recognized that this was something special connected with Noah's Ark, and they put 8 crosses signifying that they believe that this was connected to Noah's Ark. They also found that the holes weren't straight holes. One side of the hole was larger than the other, and the way they designed this is so that a rope can go through, the knot will swell up to make it more secure. So you put the knot in, and as the water swells it, it gets locked into position. So this is how they think it would have been put at the time of Noah. These are what are called drogue stones. They found these, obviously on a small scale. For a large boat you would need larger ones. And they think they used these to stabilize the boat in the rough waters. And they found a number of these around. The Bible also tells us that it was 3 stories high. Now the way they found the boat, they found it kind of like all crushed in. So that's probably how it would have looked, but this is how it looks today, kind of all caved in. So based on the evidence to date, this is what they think the boat could have looked like. The Turkish government officially recognizes this site as Noah's Ark. And you have daily tours from the nearby town to visit Noah's Ark. And they find it on all the tourist brochures. Now, further up, where they found this site, they found this relief stone. Okay, it's not very clear what it shows, but this is what they found. This relief stone, it shows like a little ridge of mountains. It shows a mountain there. They showed the boat with 8 people, and they find 2 ravens. So when you compare it, you see the ridge of mountains there. But according to this, the boat was higher up. And when they went to examine up higher up, they found that there was a little shape in the ground. And they found loads of unusual rock which had high amounts of metal in it. And they believe that the boat landed here, and with the volcano and the lava flow, it pushed the boat further down, and it hit against a little pierced rock, and it lodged there. So this is what they think happened. The boat came down, it impelled against this rock, got stuck there, and then got covered over with the mud flow. Now they've tested this rock here, and it is different to this rock here. It is also different to this rock here. So they found that within this perimeter, it is definitely different to that and to outside. They decided to drill a hole and see what they could find. They found some items here, coprolites, which is petrified toilets, and they found part of an ampler there. They found some fur and some hair, which is unusual. Here you can see on Google Earth what it looks like. So it's official. These are the remains of Noah's Ark. But that's something that you have to make up your own mind on the evidence that is presented. So let's look at the top points then to consider. It is in the shape of a boat with a pointed bow and a rounded stern. Now some people think it's a lava formation, but anyone who understands physics or engineering will know that if you have an object and it's flowing down, okay, that the top end would have a wider curve, yeah, and the bottom end would have a pointed. But this is the reverse. They found that the top end is pointed and the bottom end is rounded, which then defies thermodynamics. So it cannot be a natural lava formation. The exact length as noted in biblical description is 515 feet or 300 Egyptian cubits. It rests on a mountain in eastern Turkey, matching the biblical account. The ark rested upon the mountains of Ararat. It contains petrified wood as proven by lab analysis. It contains high-tech metal alloy fittings as proven by separate lab analysis paid for by Ron White and other people, including Kevin Fisher. They found aluminium metal and titanium metal was found in the fittings, which are man-made alloys. They found vertical rib timbers on its sides comprising the skeletal superstructure of a boat. Regular patterns of horizontal and vertical deck support beams are also seen on the deck of the ark. And the occupied ancient village at the ark site, 6,500 feet, elevation matching Flavius Josephus' statement, its remains are shown there by the inhabitants to this day. Dr. Bill Shea, archaeologist, found an ancient pottery within 20 yards of the ark, which has a carving on it that depicts a bird, a fish, and a man with a hammer wearing a headdress that has the name Noah on it. In ancient times, these items were created by the locals in the village to sell to visitors of the ark, and the ark was a tourist attraction in ancient times and today. It's recognized by the Turkish government as Noahs Ark's national park and a national treasure. An official notice of its discovery appeared in the largest Turkish paper in 1987. And visitor centre built by the government to accommodate tourists further confirms the importance of the site. And huge anchor stones were found near the ark, and the village Kazan 15 miles away, which hung off the rear of the ark to steady its ride, means the village of 8. The ark rests upon Kudi, or I think it's Kudi, which is translated as Doomsday Mountain. Dr. Salih Baraktatan of Araturk University stated, "It is a man-made structure, and for sure it's Noah's Ark." The same article also states the site is immediately below the mountain of Al-Judi, named in the Quran as the resting place of the ark. Radar scans show a regular pattern of timbers inside the ark formation, revealing keels, keelstones, gunnels, bulkheads, animal chambers, ramp system, door in the right front, 2 large barrels in the front, and an open center area for airflow to all the levels. So it's for you to decide whether this is indeed Noah's Ark. This man here says, "Merry Christmas from Noah's Ark Visitor Center." And it says in Luke 2:10-11, "I bring you good news of great joy for everyone. The Savior, yes, the Messiah, the Lord, has been born." So what's the significance for us today then? The cross was made from wood. The Godhead, the gopher wood, they found this petrified timber, and it was plywood of 3, representing the Trinity. We find in the Bible that Jesus is the only way, the only door. We find that there was only one door onto the ark. We find that it was pierced in the side, and we're told that Jesus was pierced in the side, just as this boat is being pierced in the side. It's buried in the tomb, and this also was buried in the mud. And it came forth, Jesus came forth, and this boat now has come forth. And this whole message of the flood was representative of a new world. We find in the Bible that God wants to do 3 things with us. He wants to give us a justification experience, which means basically he wants to remove our sins. And then the sanctification means he wants to make us a holy people, and the glorification, he wants to make us like him. The Lord is not slack concerning his promise, as some men count slackness, but is long suffering to usward, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. And likewise, and the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. So Noah was told that there was a time when there will be life no longer, that there will be a flood, a disaster. And the same thing we're warned in the Bible today is going to happen. Here we find that Noah was a master builder, and he also wants to do something with us. He wants to recreate us to be like him. And Noah went in, his sons and his wife, and his sons' wives with them, into the ark, because of the waters of the flood, and the Lord shut him in. This door, we're told, was shut by holy angels. And seal not the sayings of the prophecy of this book, for the time is at hand. He that is unjust, let him be unjust still, and he which is filthy, let him be filthy still, and he that is righteous, let him be righteous still, and he that is holy, let him be holy still. And we find this in the book of Revelation 22. And this tells us that there's going to come a time that where there'll be no more time left. And as we go through the coming days, I'm going to show you through these discoveries, through Bible prophecy, where we are in time. And I'm going to hopefully show you how long we have left. When they did the scans, they found that there were 72 ribs on one side and 72 ribs on the other side, which makes 144. The Bible tells us in Revelation 7 and 14 that there are someone called, or a group of people called the 144,000 that have God's name in the forehead. And in the book of Revelation it talks about two seals. It talks about a mark of the beast on the forehead and on the hand, and it talks about the mark of God, or the seal of God, which is in the forehead. Now some people have this notion that you're going to have a stamp of 666 on your head. Have you ever seen that one? Okay, we're going to be talking about that next week. But just to outline that you have two seals. You have the seal of the beast, or you have the seal of God. And the 144,000 have the seal of God. Who are the 144,000? You've got to come to the programs each night. So, what does this tell us? The Bible tells us that the same conditions will exist in our day. And as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it also be in the days of the Son of Man. The flood came and destroyed them all. It's saying, just as Noah, around Noah's time, there were all these things going on. There was a disaster. The same thing's going to happen in our time. Here we see in Noah's day, there was a population explosion. They had high technology, had corruption and violence. And in our day, we have a population explosion, high technology, corruption, and we have violence. As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be in the coming of the Son of Man. For in the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage. We're told 1 in 3 marriages now end up in divorce. Up to the day Noah entered the ark, and they knew nothing about what would happen until the flood came and took them all away. That is how it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. Knowing this first, that there shall come in the last days scoffers, walking after their own lust, and saying, where is the promise of his coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of the creation. For this they willingly are ignorant of, that by the word of God the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of the water and in the water. Whereby the world that then was, being overflowed with water, perished. But the heavens and the earth, which are now by the same word, are kept in store, reserved unto the fire against the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men. So, God sends us a rainbow. He sends us promises, and he sends us warning. The question for us tonight then is, you have to make the decision, is that indeed Noah's Ark? And if it is Noah's Ark, it establishes that the flood story is correct. It also establishes that the book of Genesis is correct, and it establishes that the prophecies contained in that book are indeed correct.